As the trucker protest drags on in our nation's capital, Canada's parliamentary Black Caucus says it is disturbed and alarmed by the ongoing situation in Ottawa. It says the so-called Freedom Convoy protest became an opportunity for white supremacists and others with extreme and disturbing views to, quote, parade their odious views in public.
In a statement signed by a number of Black parliamentarians, the group is calling for politicians to do more than just make statements. It's calling for action. The group is also calling for a review of the events surrounding the convoy protest. To discuss, we welcome to CB24 tonight the co-chairs of the Parliamentary Black Caucus, Senator Rosemary Moody and MP Greg Fergus. Thank you both for being with us. It's a pleasure to have you on. Mr. Fergus, we'll begin with you. We've seen some awful hate symbols in our nation's capital. Swastikas displayed, Confederate flags paraded through that city's downtown core. This is also a Black History Month. You gave an emotional speech in the House of Commons about how horrifying this has been to watch. Tell us what you said.
Look, I called it out. These are not just simple and anodyne flags. These flags represent two of the worst situations in human history. And we had the Nazi regime, and of course we had the, frankly, what was state-sponsored terrorism of slavery in the United States. These were terrible events, and these flags are not simple and pretty displays. They have real meaning and hurtful meanings behind them.
Mm-hmm. Senator, what was it like to see it all unfold?
Well, I think it was shocking. And I think that as we heard from many individuals, folks in Ottawa, that the situation has been untenable for them. In fact, especially for the folks with specific needs. It's been hostile for some. And it's been difficult for parliamentarians. We've been told not to go back to the Hill if we can avoid it, because there's been some volatility at times. We were told this by the Parliamentary Security Services. And I know that some people have been personally significantly affected. They've temporarily had to relocate out of Ottawa because of difficult living situations or because they were feeling publicly threatened. So I think that there are many questions that arise as a result of what has happened here. There are people questioning the response of our security forces. There are individuals concerned about the duration, the length of this protest. So this is a time for us to start raising the questions. We have... and the Parliamentary Black Caucus has asked the government, the Parliament, to begin to work on three things: to prohibit the public display of the Confederate flag and swastikas, symbols of hate and terror, as Greg just pointed out; to disclose to FinTech and the police information related to donations made public through public fundraising sites. And we've recommended that a joint parliamentary study and review be conducted to look more carefully at the events around this Freedom Convoy.
Mr. Fergus, here in Toronto, the TDSB is reporting today 2 incidents of anti-Semitism. It says a group of students constructed a swastika out of construction paper without really realizing the full significance of that symbol. And before that, the board says some students recently performed a Nazi salute in front of classmates. This is all very concerning. What do you think about what we're seeing? I mean, these kids are seeing these symbols of hate everywhere. They're now seeing them in the streets. By not prohibiting these symbols, are we normalizing them? Is that how you see it?
That is exactly how I see it. We are normalizing these symbols, and these symbols have tremendous meaning behind them. In regards to the Nazi flag, it boggles me that we have to explain the horrors of the Second World War, which is really still accessible to many people who lived through that horrendous experience. In regards to the Confederate flag, let's not mince words. The Confederate flag is a symbol for slavery, and slavery wasn't something just easy and happy to happen. It was, Black bodies being tortured before being lynched. It was, through forced labor, mangling their limbs and being whipped in ways that would just totally, destroy and deform people. So let's understand this. Let's have some education to go along. In that case, in that school, it seems that the kids need a visit from various groups in Canada that talk about Holocaust education so that they can understand what is it that they're trying to imitate and what they see in public, which they would think is normal because they see it in public. It shouldn't be normal. It should never be normalized.
Seeing it in public without punishment, without any retribution. And we hear the Prime Minister saying that those people with swastikas are not Canadians. That doesn't reflect Canada. They need to go home. But I wonder, that level of tolerance to hate is something that we're all trying to digest over the last 10 to 12 days now, Senator. How should we be tackling this? How serious should we be taking this? And how closely should we be looking at those people who are responsible for bringing those images to the protest?
Well, I think that it is concerning that what we're seeing is many elements in our country comfortably associating themselves with some of this imagery that we've seen during the protests. It's odd to me and very concerning that members of either chamber of the parliament could actually be supporting an undemocratic movement calling for the removal of democratic leaders. I think that we need to act quickly. I think that we need to act quite deliberately. Banning hate symbols, although it may be a complex conversation, is something Parliament has the tools to examine and to conclude on how we ensure our public spaces are safe and from the imagery and symbols that are really violent and oppressive. I think that when we think about the incidents that are happening with school and the role modeling that we're giving to our children, it's heartbreaking. It's really heartbreaking to know that this has happened to this family, to this student, and we hope that they know that this is not something that is acceptable here in Canada. It is a result of a disease that we need to address because it is now infecting our young people as well. And it speaks to the urgency of addressing the issues. A generation is currently learning what is right and what is wrong, and we need to make sure that we are very, very proactive in teaching them and modeling to them what is right and what is wrong.
I want to talk about that police presence in Ottawa. Mr. Fergus, this question has been asked. If this was a group of Black protesters or Indigenous protesters, would the police response have been the same? Is that something you think about?
It is something that I think about. And let me first say that I understand that the police are under tremendous difficulties in doing this. And they were trying models to try to come to an agreement as to what is acceptable. But it's really difficult to negotiate with some organizers that have no intention of engaging what would be acceptable behavior when you protest. I've organized many protests in my life, and you do so in a way that you try to keep it at the plane of ideas and the plane, and of course, some actual physical, manifestation of what you want to do. But there are ways of doing it properly, and clearly, the way these folks have conducted themselves by parking their trucks and blaring their truck horns all night for 12 days now is clearly unacceptable. They've lost a thread, and if they ever want to have sympathy, I think they should have remembered that old Kenny Rogers song. You got to know when to hold them and know when to fold them. They've gone well beyond anything, and now they've completely distracted from their message, if they actually want to share that message in the first place.
All right, we'll have to leave this conversation here. MP Greg Fergus and Senator Rosemary Moody, we appreciate both of you making time, and we'll keep this conversation going. Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.